I'm Damian, and this is Julien. We are both engineers who have grown stuff.
Yep.
So, do you want to introduce yourself, Julien?
Sure. I can start. So I'm the CEO / co-founder of Mergify, but I'm an engineer first. I've been doing open source for the last 20 years. So I'm not a marketing guy, but I had to learn. I think I started with trying to self-publish and sell books on the internet, which taught me a bit of marketing. I mean, you have to if you don't want to go through an editor, all of that. And that's why I started basically doing marketing and then started my company and done marketing. What about you?
I'm not a born marketer. I'm a born engineer. My name's Damian, and so the last company I've built a few different companies over the years, but the last company I built was a team of 2 engineers and 0 other people, so just engineers. And we built a project management tool for Slack, which we scaled as engineers to about 7 million registered users and 55,000 businesses around the world that use that. And I'm currently working at Functionally, which is a co-founder of Functionally, which is an org design software for leaders to help them build a better future for their organization, and thinking about how engineering can apply to growth there too. So, Julien, let's kick off. First question: why do you think an engineer should care about growth?
That's a good question. I like to think about it this way because I've met so many companies. You know, the story like 2 or 3 great engineers, they met together, they build a product, it's a fantastic product, and they're sure that's the best technology out there, and they build a product, they put it on the market, and then they wait, and they don't see any customers or anything, any user, and they're like, oh, obviously we missed a feature, right? So they add one more feature because that's what will get people on the product, right? So they add one more feature and then they wait, and then there's still no customers. So you do that once, twice, 3 times, and you die. Your company dies at least because nobody's going to see it. So, and that's where we started. My co-founder is also an engineer. We met working together. That's the story, like every story out there, like your story probably. And so we decided early on that this is not going to fail. So we decided to not do engineering, both of us. And that's how I started basically. I thought we have to save the company or make it work. And I started to say, okay, I'm going to be the marketing guy. I'm not going to be the technology guy writing code. So I don't write code anymore. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do marketing and make sure the thing works and scale and we can find customers.
Don't die. You can keep going. Yeah, I actually think that that thinking about growth and thinking about marketing changes you as an engineer. That engineering gives you a great career and a great salary, but if you learn how to grow things and how to turn it into a real business, you get superpowers. That you're no longer an engineer, you're an entrepreneur. And you can build something that's lasting.
Yeah, I think I started technology because I liked it. I liked tweaking things and building things. But then you start growing. Maybe I got older. I don't know. But it's like it seems to be more interesting to both. Like it's just a way to an end. It's not the end building things. And you change your mindset as like, okay, I could build anything. I'm good at it. And what do I need to build? And how do I not sell it in the sense like engineering think like marketing is like it's gross, right? We all get the emails and the whatever. Not everybody is good at marketing, so you have as an engineer often a pretty bad view on marketing. You think they're like the worst people just trying to spam you to buy things, but you don't have to do that. And as an engineer, if you want to do marketing, especially if you're doing like a product that is a bit a tech product or something you can relate on, if you're a founder, you know pretty well what you're building, what your audience is, and it's easy to bring value to the table to those people and to make you seen as the expert. Yeah, and that's a very good trick, and that's the only one you need, I think, as an engineer if you want to do marketing.
Actually, I was I don't know if you've seen Mergify's website, but if you have a look at Julien's website, Mergify.com, they've got an amazing list of customers. They've got all of these brand names from around the world that use their product, and it sort of reflected on that. And one of the times where what I do grows and grows is when you start to give proof and show these are things that actually make a difference in the world, and there's other people who are using this, and there's people who love it and who care about it. And what I did a couple of years ago, which made a big difference, was 3 months after someone was a paying customer, I'd send them a survey and I'd ask them, what do you love about this product? What would you change about this product? And then the real key, this third question was, what has changed in your company since you started using the product? And they'd say what had changed in their world. And the last little bit was, can I use this as a testimonial? And that is just an automated way to get a whole lot of testimonials. And as soon as they dropped onto the homepage, way more customers started coming in the front door.
I think your question is interesting because it's not only a marketing question, it's also a product question where you try to understand your customers. And the way you do that is like when you're a founder and an engineer early on a company is that you can't only play the one building stuff, and trying to understand your customer is part of building the product, but it also helps doing marketing because you have a pretty like a better understanding on the market you're going on the customers, like what they call persona in marketing. Like you start to understand who are your buyers, who are the people you talk to, and you don't have to do like dirty tricks or whatever to grow. You can just like be yourself, be your engineer self, and go out there and talk to these people. That's like authenticity is often underrated, I think, in this marketing, and that's why people usually don't like all the marketing, and people are sometimes bad at marketing because they're not authentic. And that's something that is pretty easy to do. Just be yourself and build your brand that way, the way you are, the way you want to communicate.
Yeah.
And it's a basic advice, and you don't have to like do 5 years of studying marketing to apply that, even if
It's not a dirty word.
Yep.
Maybe some marketers think that engineering's a dirty word. So next question. What do you think that engineers can do to be a superhero marketer? What can an engineer bring to the table that no one else can?
I think their brain is wired differently.
Yeah.
They don't see the world the same way that marketing or salespeople in general. There are very different people that not doing any kind of generality there, but you think different as an engineer. You see the world differently, and that gives you a pretty good leverage on many things. You also know to do things people don't like to do. Like there's a lot of trend around no code, all of that. There are plenty of tools, but you can do tricks. Not dirty tricks, but at least you can do things and
clean
in a way.
tricks.
Yeah, and you can do things in scaling ways. Sometimes marketing people don't think about. I think, especially on the internet, like it's your playground as an engineer, right?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, so I think thinking about this, I think that lots of marketers struggle with data. That their data doesn't match up and they don't know exactly what this customer's been doing and where this one came from and does this thing match up with this other thing. And there's all of these struggles to get everything to link up and understand what's going on. But as an engineer, you can just build it yourself. You just can like connect the pieces together or run the report or dig into the database. And so all of these big unknown questions that marketers have and struggle with day to day, it's super easy to go in and just make that thing happen and fix that thing. So I think you've got this extra tool belt which can supercharge you.
Yeah, and I also think you can do marketing without doing that. But basically, I tried to do that at the beginning because I thought that was market I wanted to do, and you need to do as a marketing. Like you need to know where your customers are coming from. But when you start to dig into marketing, at least that's my taking of it. It's like you dig into it and you build it for the long term.
Yeah.
You're actually more interested into building your brand than trying to. Like the short-term tricks don't work, and as an engineer, you're used to like. You have a feedback loop that is pretty short, right? You build something, it doesn't compile, it doesn't work, then you see it, you fix it, it works. Marketing is a bit different because you have to think long term. So maybe also because we're a bootstrap company, we think always long term. We're trying to not have the short term act you might use if you're a very early stage startup or whatever. But you have to think that what you're doing is going to work long term. You have to trust yourself, and it's very hard when it's not your first job or your first training at the beginning. You have to trust that what you're doing with building your brand, building your authenticity, building case studies, all of that, you could do as material for your bringing value to your customers. It's as simple as that. I think that's something we should probably emphasize on. Like, how do you talk to your customer? How do you make them trust you? And it's pretty easy when you're an engineer because you have this mindset of sharing, of sharing your knowledge, basically.
Yeah, and thinking about it like that. How did you get your first customer? How did you get customer number one for Mergify? What was it that you did to get that? And then number two?
Yeah, I think the first one we just went on a like India hacker or something. We just talked about like, we built this. What do you think? And one guy was like, we need to try it. And that was our first customer that churned after a month, but first customer.
Okay. Yeah. No, actually, for me, the previous company I started, the first thing I did was I decided not to write any code. The first thing I would do was print out a piece of paper with a drawing of what I decided to build. And instead of building it, I went out and spoke to people and tried to sell the piece of paper. And I said, and I went to sign up and say, I've almost got this ready. I'm about to launch this thing, and once I got 5 people who said yes, I'm willing to buy that for $50 a month, then I went and wrote the code.
That's very counterintuitive for an engineer because you always want to do things that scale.
It was scary.
That's not my advice, but the first advice you find on startup on the internet is like do things that don't scale, and the only thing you want to do as an engineer is like I want to scale, I want Google scale for everything.
Yeah.
So you're trying to do your build your marketing as a giant pipeline of things which is not going to scale and help you, especially in the early days.
Yeah, and I actually found when I tried to sell it, when I tried to go and be the sales guy, like you said, you think it's a dirty trick, and I felt really dirty trying to sell it. And everyone that I tried to sell it to, they all said no, I don't want to buy this from you. But instead, when I went in and I said, I've got some questions to ask you about this. I want to learn what you think about it, and I want to learn if I can make it better. Those people who I wasn't even trying to sell to, they were the ones who actually ended up buying. So it was that I had to think like an engineer and think about what are the problems and how do I fix it and how do I build it. And that thinking like an engineer actually led to the growth.
Yeah, I think it's like I was mentioning, it's like there's a lot of crossing between building the product thing of your startup and the marketing. They're kind of the same thing, especially when you start. So it's not very hard to change what you're building and what you're doing and what you're learning into the product to say, okay, that's smart marketing. Like you talk to customer, like you were saying, you understand their pain points. That's your first marketing trick, just write content about the pain point of the customers. The next guy going to look up on the internet about that pain point is going to find your blog post or whatever, and they'll know that you know about that, and they'll just contact you to see, oh, can you solve this for me? And that there's no like trick or anything. It's just as simple as that to share knowledge. And I think we have a pretty good culture in engineering of sharing, of teaching each other new stuff, all of that. I mean, so it's a pretty good marketing trick, I think, to basically educate your audience, build an audience out of that. And be seen as the expert of your problem area, and then sell a solution. And sometimes you can do that even without building anything, which is what you were saying. Like, just don't build anything. Start a blog or whatever. Go on a forum, on a Reddit. I don't know, and just talk about the pain point you know about, and then you'll be the expert, and then you'll build a solution. But there's no point in building anything before all of that.
Yeah, it needs to solve someone's pain before it's worth building. There's another sort of pain point as well, where the product starts to solve someone's needs, and then they find it too painful to use, and then they abandon what you're doing. So it's made it too difficult, or there's too many hurdles in the way. And one of the ways I found some of those pain points was actually using GitHub. And so I looked at every day how many signups I had and whether they stayed around. And sometimes there were lots of signups who were really sticky, and sometimes there weren't. And I tracked that back to every commit I'd ever made. And I found that when I made commits about notifications, that it completely changed. That's when the graph went massively up or massively down. And so I tracked it back and said, these are the types of changes that made it really sticky and grow, and these were the types of changes that I made that made it way worse. And so by backing out the bad ones and doing more of the good ones, that led to enormous amounts of growth, just by reviewing all of the commits in GitHub.
That's a pretty good way. I think there's nobody in a better place to do all of that than an engineer, because you know your product. You can. Although there are so many people frustrated out there, marketing or product people, that try to grow a product by its usage, but its new sign up, and they don't have the tool, and they rely on you to do that. But you can actually do that. The only way you have to. Only problem you have to solve for yourself is like having the ID, but if you look up on the internet, there's a lot of resources out there what are the good metrics to track, and how you do that, then it's pretty easy for an engineer to write a script or whatever, or to do what you did in that case. Yeah.
So do you have any tips about actionable things that an engineer could do to help growth?
I think one of the things that I did in the early days was to try to track, like doing statistics on a lot of different things, like people use your product. There are a lot of tools out there, and any marketing guy that is not very like knowledgeable or starting up not actually know to do that, like to tweak all the link, like you were saying, all that. So that's pretty easy for you to do and to understand what your customers or users are doing on your product and what might be frustrating. So that's a first thing I would do, which is the part of making sure your product usage grow and people are not frustrating and leaving, basically stopping using your product. In terms of acquisition, I think honestly the best thing for me is to like I was saying, just sharing, like whatever you do,
Yep.
just sharing. Sometimes we share things about what we build. Sometimes we share things on how do you handle VAT on Stripe, which is boring and not what we solve, but we solved it, so we just share that. And then it worked because we had a lot of startups in Europe having this VAT issue and looking that up, and then they discovered our product. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Not saying anyone just about the product, maybe not. I don't know. They just know about us now because we. And there's a lot of things like you can do that as an engineer, like you use an API, whatever. You can share all of that. There's a lot of people think usually, especially engineers, that what they do, everybody knows about it. Like it's boring. Everybody knows that, which is totally not true. Nobody knows. So the more you share about your journey as a startup, the more you share about the thing you're building and the way you're building it, not necessarily the pain point, especially if you're not yet an expert on the pain point you're solving, you're still trying to describe it a lot. And also a startup are trying to do that, and engineering team are starting to do that, like document what they do, and they do that. And that's pretty good marketing trick, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And understanding what the inside of what people's behavior is as opposed to what you think someone is. Well, the last tip from me is on a very similar line, and it's really basic, but it's something that's so hard to do sometimes, is just contact every user and ask to talk to them. And at the beginning, you can talk to every single user in your product and hop on a Zoom call, get them to screen share if you ever can, and almost everyone will be willing to do that. And then write down their words. If they call something different to what you call it, remember what they called it. If they click a button 10 times looking for something that's not there, write that down. And so remember exactly what they do and exactly what they say, and you'll start to find patterns that lead to growth.
It's a good advice because it's like non-obvious because that doesn't scale. So engineers are like that doesn't scale, I'm going to do that. And also I'm a introvert engineers. A lot of engineers I think are also introverted. So talking to other people and to users is pretty scary at the beginning. Like I don't want to talk to these people, just going to buy it and not ever talk to me. But it's the best trick because you learn so much on these kind of calls. And not necessarily about what the pain point is, but you discover new stuff to build, which is cool when you're an engineer. You want to build new stuff, right? So there's many other like
supercharge your brain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. That's been a great talk. Thanks everyone for participating. It's been a good afternoon.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you guys for staying up here. Just one quick question. There was one thing that there was a talk that came up earlier that was really interesting, and I'm sorry I stepped out for a second, so I didn't hear everything you said talked about. But also engineers moving into other roles. So moving into roles in marketing, and they were talking about the interest in doing that. So as far as is that also another growth? Did you guys talk about that?
Ooh, I've got. So I think that engineers are scared to step into other roles. But sometimes, and quite often, stepping into something that's as far away from engineering as possible really helps you become a better engineer by understanding what's happening in another part of the business. So one thing that I've seen companies do, and I've done myself, is doing direct customer support and being the one who has to answer the phone when things are breaking, because it really makes you want to fix those broken things. And so it does really help you become a better engineer.
Yeah, my former CTO worked sometimes as a sales engineer with us. And it was really beneficial. And he helped on sales, he helped on marketing. He had valuable contributions across the board. So I think engineering, it's hard for a guy like me who works in marketing to go become an engineer. But an engineer stepping into another role, I think they bring a lot to the table. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.